Are you also tired of one-size-fits-all weight loss plans? Meet Noom, the personalized solution that meets you where you are. Noom is able to understand your unique needs, from dietary restrictions to medical concerns. Unlike restrictive programs, Noom embraces your lifestyle and choices. Discover a sustainable approach to weight loss, tailored just for you. Honestly, Noom felt like it was made for me. It's not just about what I eat, it's about understanding why. With Noom, I've learned so much about myself and built healthier habits that stick. It's all about progress, not perfection. Say goodbye to restrictive diets and experience the Noom app for yourself with personalized lessons and expert coaching. Noom's psychology and biology-based approach has helped over 5.2 million people achieve their goals. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. And check out Noom's first ever cookbook, The Noom Kitchen, for 100 healthy and delicious recipes to promote better living. Available to buy now wherever books are sold.
This podcast is sponsored by Monarch.
Lifesaver.
Game changer.
The best thing to ever happen to my finances.
The people have spoken. Monarch makes personal financing a breeze.
Monarch is an intuitive, powerful, collaborative finance app that can help you save, budget, and keep your financial life in shape.
With Monarch, I can see my account balances, transactions, and investments in one place, so I always know what's going on with my money.
Whether you're saving for your first home, thinking about starting a family, your own business, or planning for retirement, Monarch is here for you every step of the way.
Gain clarity, confidence, and peace of mind with Monarch and manage your finances more effectively. See what thousands of people are saying about Monarch, the app Wall Street Journal voted the best budgeting app of 2024. Collaborate with your partner or a financial advisor at no additional cost. Get a 30-day free trial when you go to monarchmoney.com/podcast. That's monarchmoney.com/podcast for your free trial. monarchmoney.com/podcast.
Live from the back of Ruth the Realtor's car, it's the Stacking Deed Show. I'm Ruth the Realtor's part-time mechanic, neighbor Doug, broadcasting live from the spacious recording studio in the trunk of her 88 Lincoln Town Car. On today's show, ever wondered how failure can actually be the key to your success? Our special guest, Dave Mason, will share stories of famous and not-so-famous failures that will show you how to turn your missteps into stepping stones on your path to real estate riches. In our headlines, 3D printed homes are gaining popularity, but are they a good idea or a bad idea? Plus, we'll answer a call to Ruth's rotary phone from Sarah, who's wondering if there are any ways to buy your first investment property without putting down 20%. And of course, as sure as the sun rises and shines upon the sizzler, I'll pop in later with my property pop quiz. And now, two peeps who have a 5-cookie-a-day habit. It's Crystal Hammond and Joe Saul-Sehy.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my 5 habit a day with the cookie show, which I wish I could stop at 5 cookies, though. When I have cookies, I'm not stopping at 5, unfortunately. So, Joe, how are you today on this?
When it is 5, we just got to tell people when it is 5, that struggle, Crystal, over the 5th cookie is real.
Like 5 or more.
It is real, but you're right. I think I'm on the Crystal Hammond train there, where it isn't 5, it's a sleeve. If I'm doing 5, I'm doing a sleeve.
Doesn't it depend on the type of cookie?
Oh,
Well, yeah, of
absolutely. Yes.
It's either 0 cookies or all the cookies, because there are cookies that I hate, will never eat, but
Yeah,
when I
like
like it, it's
like
all.
the Girl Scout shortbreads or the Samoas. Those are a
Nope.
good dozen for me.
Mm-mm.
But an
Thin
Oreo,
Mints.
it's 4 max. Hard stop
Oh.
on an
Oh,
Oreo.
really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's bizarre. If I go to a 5th Oreo, I have this weird bitter taste in my mouth for hours after
I know
that.
exactly what you're talking about, which is
Oh.
why mine is either 0 Oreos or a full quart of milk, and then it's all the Oreos. All of them. Yes, because not only do you get the Oreos, you get that cool Oreo cookie flavored milk at the end.
The sludge,
know?
that slurry
Yes.
of, yeah.
Oh, that is
Oh,
bad.
so
because
good.
you dip them. Well, I'm cheap. I'd buy the Trader Joe's version of Oreos. And those are Those are really
Even
good.
more sludge per
Yeah,
pound.
welcome to Cookie Corner with,
Yes.
with Crystal, Joe, and Doug.
We are all
Everybody's
things cookie
having
today.
these nice warm remembrances of cookie time in kindergarten right now. We're just giving you one of those warm blanket
Beautiful.
moments.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think it's a good lead into our topic today, which is failure and hurrying up to fail, because whatever I buy Oreos and milk, I know I'm going to fail. Like I'm going to try to eat 3 and I'm going to fail. Like I walk in ready for failure.
Decisions were made at the grocery store.
Bad decisions.
Before that, we have this technology related headline. So why don't we get into it, guys?
Hello, chaps. And now our Stacking Deeds headlines. Cheerio and pip pip.
Our headline today comes to us from CNN, and you found this, Crystal. This is written by Oscar Holland. Look inside the world's largest 3D printed neighborhood, not a single house, a whole neighborhood 3D printed. You know how 3D printers make those weird lines? You know, you get those lines. I'm looking at a house, and it's a house that has all those little stringy lines.
But it looks like texture. I like the exterior because it does. It looks like texture to me. Like now I want wallpaper that looks like the outside of that house.
Well, then maybe go buy a gigantic 3D printer.
All I can think of when you say houses and lines is Scarface.
It's a whole different show.
Different kind of texture.
Welcome to the It's Snowing in Summer podcast. The world's largest community of 3D printed homes is being built in Texas. And the neighborhood just unveiled its first completed house. With walls printed using a concrete-based material, the single-story structure is the first of 100 such homes to welcome residents starting September. It's in Georgetown, Texas. For people not familiar with Texas, you know, you can call it a suburb of Austin, but really it's far enough away. Is it a separate town or is it a suburb? But I know that it probably would qualify as a suburb because a lot of the people that live in Georgetown just do the long commute into Austin.
The technical term for that, Joe, is exurb.
Is it?
New,
what a
new word.
flex, man.
Exurb. I know.
I'm going to go back to sleep now.
These houses range in size from 1,500 to 2,100 square feet, have 3 to 4 bedrooms. More than a third of the home's walls have now been printed, and the properties on offer being sold for $475,000 to $599,000, $600,000. That does not feel like, on a 1,500 square foot house, $600,000, Crystal, does not sound like a bargain to me.
But it's brand spanking new, and you're at the forefront of technology. I think it depends on the neighborhood too, because are we talking Beverly Hills, which this exurb sounds like? If it's outside of Austin, we know how great Austin is and how expensive Austin is.
How do we, though? I mean, I don't know. If I'm buying into this, first of all, if I'm an investor, am I buying into this type of property? Am I speculating on one of these and gobbling it up?
I guess it depends, because from the developer's standpoint, is this cheaper? Because there's always the cycle of times. Like there's times when materials get crazy expensive, especially during COVID. The cost of materials went through the roof. So, this might be a time to attempt 3D printing just to save on costs. So that's another answer. It depends. Do the math. Will it be cheaper or more efficient to build a 3D home? But then are you jumping on a trend where we don't know what happens in 10 years to a 3D printed home?
Martin Vogel, a partner at Biarle Ingalls Group, said in a statement that 3D printed buildings were a significant step toward reducing waste in the construction process, as well as toward making our homes more resilient, sustainable, and energy self-sufficient. They can put things inside of these concrete molds that help it be even more energy efficient.
I like them. So I'm definitely going to link to these in the show notes, but I went through the floor plans of all of the different homes, and I definitely pictured myself living in one of these homes because it looked really cool to me.
I think 2 things directly about this topic. I mean, number one is I don't think many of our deeders have the wallet size to be able to go 3D print a neighborhood.
Speak for yourself. No, just kidding.
That's right. You're 3D printing houses on the south side of Chicago as we speak.
Not yet.
I don't think we have the pockets to innovate that way. I also think that if I'm buying into this type of community, the developers probably made sure that with their math machinery that they're able to wring any short-term value out of this. So I don't think that's a good deal. But I do think this is a reminder, though, Crystal, that technology and looking at where technology used to be and where technology is today when it comes to your building supplies and when it comes to your efficiencies with getting tenants in, things are changing all the time. I know I'm about to take off for a conference tomorrow, and about half the sessions are about AI, are about all the different things that I can do with AI now that 2 years ago I could not do with AI. And I also think about things like solar, the game is changing. Tankless water heaters, the game is changing very quickly. In fact, some of the roofing materials out there, the game is changing very quickly. So I think that keeping up with technology while you're working the next project and not getting sucked into, with solar, frankly, I think there was a lot of political stuff going on. A lot of people going, oh, well, and it's funny the whole time that these people were telling you that solar was so expensive and you couldn't do it. Look at what your local utility was doing. Your local utility was buying up all the ability to do solar themselves.
Crazy.
So don't get caught in somebody's PR game while you're doing it. I think actually, Crystal, what's the phrase you like to say? Do the math?
Do the math and it'll let you know. Even all these small changes of technology, because look at LED lighting. When we first started switching from bulbs to LEDs, that was kind of a transition, because I'll never forget my first LED bulbs. When they turn on kind of dim.
Oh,
and you
it
have to wait.
sucked.
I hated that, but now we barely notice when that happens. And now the technology is better that it doesn't do that anymore. So I love it.
Well, and those initial 3D bulbs too, with the cold light,
Yeah.
they were all so cold.
Yep.
And it just gave your room this horrible look. And
Mhm.
now, of course, the
Warm.
warm
Oh, yeah.
LED lighting
You can
looks
adjust
great.
it
Technology's
now.
gone a long way.
You can change
Right,
it to
yeah,
how you
you
want
can
it.
have any color you want. You can have
Yeah.
disco ball
I don't know. There still
lighting.
has to be a value. I mean, just like those bulbs that we were all sold on. They stopped selling incandescent bulbs, so some of us didn't have a choice depending
Right,
on
yeah.
what market we were in at the beginning there. But secondly, the value prop there was, oh, you're going to buy this now and not buy another one for 25 years, which was bullshit because they were burning out like crazy on me initially. So the value wasn't there. And I wonder about that with these homes. The average price, according to Redfin, the average per square foot price in Georgetown, Texas, on a median home sale of $499, which is what it was there last year, is $229 a square foot. And at $475,000 for a 1,500 square foot 3D printed home, it's roughly $317 a square foot. So to your point, Crystal, who's winning on this deal? And it's a concrete home. Concrete's not inexpensive as a material, and the technology that you have to, as a builder, that you have to invest in to start building these homes is not inexpensive. But the play has to be for the builder because it's lowering their labor costs, because you probably have fewer trades to deal with if you're just doing a single material wall. But for the buyer, it's going to be hard for me to pay almost $100 more per square foot for a concrete house than a comparable home in the market.
That, I think, Doug nails it. That I don't know that I go into this because the developer has sucked all the profit out and kept it for themselves. All that margin.
Feels like
a 2020 study, by the way, also to your point, the CNMP says from Singapore, found a bathroom unit constructed using 3D printing was both 25.4% cheaper and produced almost 86% less carbon dioxide than one made with conventional construction materials. I don't want to go into the 86% less carbon dioxide, but the 25.4% cheaper, based on the numbers you just ran, Doug, the builders keeping all that. The developers keeping all that money. And by the way, here's something else that's a little scary. Critics have pointed out 3D printed homes still rely on carbon intensive concrete, and that building codes addressing the structure's safety and stability have, underlined, not yet been widely adopted. Safety on these things is still a question.
That's weird.
See, and I would think it would help the homeowner down the line with less maintenance. But that's pure speculation. That's another reason. I like it. I see myself living in one, but have I pushed the button? Have I made any moves to actually make that happen? No, not at all.
I think we're clearly at early adopter stage here. There are much less expensive technologies. Heck, on last week's show, we talked about Lauren Keenamond being on the show and, just the technology she uses for her short-term rentals, at different technologies with your team. I stayed at this really cool motel. And I think I might have talked about this last summer when it happened, but I walked into the lobby of the motel and there was nobody working there.
Oh, yeah.
I had to push in a code and then a lockbox opened and had my keys. This landlord had done a great job of taking one of these old beat up motels in a small kind of touristy town, but in an area where not a lot of people go to. It was in International Falls, Minnesota, and served Boundary Waters in both Voyager National Park. So they have a very short season.
Mm-hmm.
So for them to make any money on this motel, they have to strip costs, and being able to use some technology, which I'm sure is not like Crystal, it's not like the 3D tech that we're talking about here. It's this cool little technology just to avoid the human capital. I bet this person, this investor, made up that money in a hurry, by installing this tech.
Well, yeah.
It was funny. We were staying at a place in Provincetown, Cape Cod, and their staff in both of the inns we were at left at 8 p.m. And they both said, don't come after 8 p.m. because nobody's here and we can't let you in. I was like, if you just had that system.
Those are the rules.
Yeah.
But then I like that. I don't know. It depends, just because I like someone laying eyes on me and saying, hey, welcome to our.
I do, but
for safety.
You know what they did though, Crystal?
They got cameras probably.
They passed it on to me. They passed the savings on to me.
And got it. That makes sense.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think that the other hotels that I could have stayed at, because it was the middle of summer season, were 180 to 200 and X dollars, 300 something. And I stayed, I think, for $110 a
there
night.
you go.
So that's the opposite of what we're talking about here, where it doesn't appear that the builder is passing the savings on to the home buyer.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well,
no, but this is kind of what we're going to talk with Dave Mason about, which is see failure ahead of time. Like in this particular motel, and I'll just throw the name out there. It was the Nomad Motel. It was pretty cool.
No-tell motel, Joe?
But it was just
is that where you were?
The no-tell motel. Yes. Quarters in the bed.
That's why there's no one at the front.
Mirrors on the
was that
ceiling.
Rate you discussed hourly?
Oh.
Do not bring a black light because you will. Gross. No, wasn't that at all.
Funny.
Hey, coming up next, Dave Mason is a guy who has known failure himself. He actually is a guy who punches through failure all the time. And he also is normally a fiction author. He's decided that it's time to study failure. And obviously, when we're in the real estate business, we need to make as many offers as we can. We need to look as many offers as we can. And when we first start out as real estate investors, we think every deal's got to be a home run. It doesn't have to be. We can look and look and fail and fail and fail before we find the right thing. So I love that we're going to talk to Dave here in a second, hopefully.
Do you think he'll sing his song for you when you talk to him? Ask him if he can sing his song.
It's not Dave Matthews.
No, Dave Mason. He had that great song in the late 70s, early 80s, We Just Disagree. There ain't no good guy. There ain't no bad guy. There's only you.
Quit while you're behind.
We just disagree. Come on. Ask him. Ask him to sing it.
We just disagreed on whether you should have done that or not.
Yeah.
We disagree on my voice.
We apologize, listeners. Listeners,
it's a great song.
Apologize.
The other Dave Mason coming up next. But before that, it's time for our pop quiz.
Can I sing the whole thing?
No.
No, please don't. Hey there, Deeters! I'm Ruth's wrench-wielding repair guru, neighbor Doug, and even though Crystal and Joe are here to help you learn the basics of real estate investing, you're bound to have a few failures, right? Heck, even the pros screw things up. Go Google how the venues for the 2004 Olympics in Athens are doing nowadays, or even the 2016 Rio Olympics. Developers help fund these massive infrastructure projects, thinking they'd continue to attract events and fans for decades to come. Instead, most of them are sitting there decaying faster than that fedora I bought because I thought it made me look as cool as Jason Mraz. In fact, one of the world's most famous buildings is making money in spite of the fact that it's never made a profit from rental income as it was originally intended. So let's make that the subject of today's Property Pop Quiz. What world-famous building completed in 1931 makes more money from ticket sales from tourists than it does from its commercial tenants? I'll be back right after I perfect my scat rapping like Jason. Once I master that, the hat's gonna look sweet.
You know, Crystal, we're talking with this brilliant team today about benefits, But one benefit that people can give themselves is better property management. And we've mentioned a ton of property management softwares that are out there, but let's give people 3 reasons why the one we're about to mention is different. First, software alone doesn't really solve your problem.
And that's why Hemlane's property management provides 24/7 repair coordination. That's right. You can either use your own service professionals or you can tap into their licensed network. Notice I said licensed network.
Right. No, that's a good point. And we talked earlier in the show about it. Don't ask how, ask who. And Hemlane definitely knows who the who's are. Second, many of you are investing out of state. So Hemlane connects you with licensed leasing agents and other tenant placement services to help you find and place a tenant.
And then third, Hemlane is ranked number 1 by Gartner with 4.8 star reviews.
Wow.
So they're legit. Yeah, I know when I'm looking for food, if it's 4.5 and under, I'm not touching the restaurant.
Yeah. When you see the sign that says discount sushi, you're like, no, probably not. Not 2 words that go together. Manage your rental properties with 100% transparency and control without the administrative work through Hemlane. They offer everything from advertising your rental to over 30 rental websites to automatic rent collection and late fees. Best of all, you can tap into their network for a more hands-off and remote experience. Hemlane will increase your satisfaction and your cash flow with your rental properties.
So visit www.hemlane.com and don't forget to mention to tell Hemlane that you heard about them through Stacking Deeds. Hemlane will dramatically improve your property management.
We talk about Hemlane because of the fact that we believe in them very much, to the point that we have an affiliate deal with them. So if you'd like to help the show and help yourself, make sure when you go to hemlane.com, you tell them what Crystal you just said.
Yep.
Please tell them Stacking Deeds
sent you.
We should have coordinated that.
Hey there, Deeters. I'm vocal gymnast and professional chateau model, Ruth's mechanic, neighbor Doug. Before the break, we were talking about how common real estate failure is. After all, you've got to stub your toe on the bed a few times before you can make it to the bathroom successfully in the middle of the night, am I right? All right, I know it's a real estate show. I'm getting there. Keep your pants on. Today's property pop quiz is about one of the most famous buildings in the world. Even though it's been featured in countless movies, I'm not counting them, and receives 4 million visitors a year, it's apparently never made a profit in the way it was originally intended. It has allegedly never made a profit from the rental fees from its tenants. Instead, ticket sales from all those visitors and a few giant apes are where it's really pulling in the dough. So what building is it? Of course, I'm talking about the Empire State Building. So if you think you've got a failure on your books, maybe just find a way to sell tickets. Hey, wait a minute. There's a seat with nobody in it right next to Ruth. And everybody loves riding shotgun, right? Boom! I'm about to become a 100-air. You better buy a ticket for Ruth's shotgun seat extravaganza before we stop to pick up today's mentor, Dave Mason. There ain't no good guys. There ain't no bad guys. Such a good talk.
Crystal, is that Dave over there?
I believe that is Dave.
Dave, get in, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to see you, man. I don't know how you rent out any houses in this thing. This back seat's bigger than my living room.
Well, we didn't need you to walk from the airport, man. We were coming to pick you up.
It's good to be here.
I'm super happy that you're here with us. What makes somebody want to study failure?
I think part of it is this whole idea that, I need to be successful. I need to be right. I need to get the right answer in there. And it's like, we put failure down. We look at ourselves so harshly. I know I've judged myself so harshly for my failures, but really we all know that deep down that success doesn't come without failure. The biggest successes in the world failed over and over and over again on their way. But at a certain time, we kind of shift that and we get afraid of failure. And that actually becomes, ironically, our biggest block to success. So to me, I needed to dive into this topic of failure. I needed to take on my fear of failure head on and say, you know what? I need to be friends with failure if I really want to be building the life I'm dreaming of.
I was at a board game night, guys, a couple nights ago. I know that shocks both of you. And I was playing board games. But remember the band from the 80s, the Eurythmics, Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox? And somebody was like, man, this band came out of nowhere. And it's cool that they truly didn't. And nobody really knows this story. But Dave Stewart had been a musician with 3 or 4 bands before the Eurythmics. Annie Lennox was like this phenomenal singer that everybody who was not an audience knew. She was that person that all other bands knew who she was. And when they got the two of them together and they, quote, came out of nowhere, these two, Dave, had failed over and over and over and over again to become an overnight success, right? I mean, they had hit it. You had a similar story. I mean, how many times have you done courses and things and you had a story with your course?
Yeah, the story with that was interesting. Was we actually were down in the Ecuadorian rainforest and we decided to
there's a flex. So I'm down in Ecuador, as you are.
Chilling.
Decided, once we're down there, hey, if we record the course down here, this whole trip becomes a write-off, right? So we were down there and we're recording this course for our book. And first of all, the camera was only pointed at my wife. I was behind the camera. We co-wrote this book, The Size of Your Dreams, and we're writing this course. We're filming this video course to go with it. And we're recording and we're taking the right shots and we're setting everything up perfectly and the sound and the video. And it never saw the light of day. We never, ever used those recordings at all because you know what? We didn't get it 100% right. We weren't all the way there. And we just judged ourselves so harshly for not getting it all the way. And then a couple years later, I think COVID had started and we were all on lockdown. We said, you know what? Forget trying to film the perfect course. Why don't we go live right now and just tell everyone that we're putting out the course. We're doing it 6 weeks in a row for 2 hours per week. And whoever wants to sign up, sign up. We're going to teach this thing live. And we got 60 people signing up for this.
Oh my God.
And we never taught it before. And this time I do get myself on camera and I get up there with my wife and I say, look, we don't really have this all mapped out. We haven't taught this before. We don't know exactly what everyone's going to need. So we're just going to get out there and hurry up and fail. And I just kind of made up the term off the top of my head. And I was really surprised. I thought, well, people might not like that idea. They might be like, what do you mean you don't really know what you're doing and you're going to get out here and fail on us?
I just paid a bunch of money for this, Dave. Great. Oh. You don't have it all mapped. Fantastic. What am I doing here?
Exactly. And instead, people started applauding and they started laughing and they got behind it and they started doing things, taking bold steps and sharing it with the group and putting the hashtag hurry up and fail. It became a calling card. And they really loved the idea. And as I get into the later chapters, there's a few reasons why they didn't freak out when we said that. And that's part of the mitigating failure section is one, we made sure that the consequences of failure would only fall on us. So we gave I think it was a 10x money back guarantee. Like if you don't get 10 times the value of what you paid for this course, we'll give you all your money back, no question. So they didn't have to worry about us failing because if we did a horrible job, they could take the entire course and get all their money back and they would have lost nothing from it. Plus the fact that we decided, we also look into in the Exceed Expectations chapter, we go through this idea that, we promised them 6 2-hour courses. But at the same time, because we hadn't taught it before, we didn't know exactly what it was that people would want and where there would be holes. And so we're really open to feedback about, we'd also like something about this. We'd also like something like this. We probably gave 3 or 4 different bonus additions that we threw in. Like one night I was talking about different business skills and someone's like, I'd really love to learn more about your approach to business. So I planned an extra session and I went in, okay, here are my top business principles. And I just went through and taught them all. And probably 12 out of the 60 people came in for that bonus. It's not something that everybody did, but we tried to give more than they bargained for. So they're expecting X and we gave them like X times 1.5 or X times 2. And we told them, and if it's not good, take your money back. So they weren't afraid of us messing up. They felt they got more than they put in. And so they were really loose and ready to follow us on the journey. The other thing, the third element I look at in terms of how to mitigate your failures is let people into your personal journey. If you put yourself out to the world as perfect, they're going to expect you to be perfect. But if you share with the fact, hey, I'm kind of creating this as I'm going. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love to know where I'm succeeding, where I'm not. If you let them into your journey, they want to see you succeed and they're willing to excuse periodic failures along the way.
I also feel like that level of transparency brings trust also too. And I think people don't glorify, especially Facebook. They never glorify what went wrong and where you failed. Is where you learn the most. It's where your education really comes in. And I think we need more failure parties, because that's really where you learn And that's where you grow, is when you do something wrong and you're like, okay, I'm never doing that again. I think that's what people have a fear of failure for. They don't realize that that's bringing you to something that's never going to happen again. That's bringing you to a mistake that you're never going to make again.
Ulysses Crystally's failure parties that Dave suggests.
Yeah.
Bake a failure cake or a favorite dessert.
See?
Like, we failed, let's go celebrate it. Journal about each failure. I like that one because it also gets to, Dave, what you also talk about, which is kind of do like a post-mortem. Like, what went wrong here? How do I take care of that? I think that journaling's got to be something that you guys do.
Yeah. The post-mortems, dissecting your failures is a big one, but celebrating the parties. We have a failure playlist. When I fail,
Nice.
I was so afraid, really, honestly, of failing more in my wife's eyes than anybody else. I want to be her hero, right? And so, like, if I try something and I fail, I'm embarrassed in front of my wife. And, I talked to her about how we can switch that. I'm like, what if we created a playlist? And when we fail, we dance together. So when neither of us is afraid of failing in front of the other, we're going to create a failure playlist and we're going to dance. Dun, 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 dun. Another one bites the dust. And we're just dancing.
Yeah.
In our
I like
apartment
it.
as another one bites the dust and I'm still standing. And it's like we're enjoying the fact that we failed and that we play together and we try things and we stretch ourselves. And it's not always going to work out okay, but it's really shifted the way we look at failure in our home.
I feel like we make the stakes really big. You begin. We're going to get into an entrepreneur here in a second. But before that, I want to talk about another story that you tell, which is about, we kind of build this up to be Mount Everest in our head, Dave. Like, in our head, every single thing that we take on, this is the summit. Like, I'm doing this big thing. So you walk us through like how Mount Everest kind of overwhelms us.
Yeah, there was a journey up Mount Everest that for some reason really captured my imagination. And reading multiple books and movies and talks about this one journey up the mountain. And it was just such a huge disaster. It was these professional guides who were taking these very amateurs up the mountain, and they did it for a couple of years and all went well. And then one time they go up and they catch a storm and all of these people don't make it back down alive. And some of these people literally, had been training on a Stairmaster. They hadn't even been outside. They've been using hiking boots that they'd putting on for the first time. They hadn't even been broken in. And these guys go up there and they're just so unprepared. And the top of Mount Everest, the top 2,000 feet or so, it's called the dead zone. There's not enough oxygen at that altitude to live on. Your brain literally starts shutting down, and they started making a lot of really, really bad decisions when they're up there. And I like this story for the book because it highlights what we're not talking about in the book, Hurry Up and Fail. I'm not saying, hey, be one of these people who trains for a few weeks on the Stairmaster and then tries to climb Mount Everest.
Oh, die.
And you can die. There are failures out there where you can die. And I want to be very clear, big disclaimer, and I was an attorney beforehand. I'm not encouraging you to go out there and try anything that is going to cause you to die if you fail. If anything, what we want to do is we want to bring the level of failure down. I talk about failing fast, failing cheap, failing with really low circumstances. How can we reduce the impact of your failures? And how can you quicken the pace so that you're failing a lot, you're learning from them, you're trying again, you're failing a lot, but none of them is absolutely cutting you down at the knees. None of them is going to make you die on a cold, barren mountaintop in the Himalayas if you don't come through. So that's why I really love that story. So it's understand that just about any way you fail, you're able to reduce it into smaller steps. Don't prepare for 3 years and for the one launch that then goes downhill. Are there ways that you can do things in steps and build up momentum over time?
Look at Crystal. How many times have we heard our deeders talk about trying to make the perfect offer on a house, or they don't think that it's perfect, so they don't do anything. And then we go talk to people like Vicki Barron, who she's out there knocking on doors, Dave. This woman is so brilliant. She's knocking on doors, asking people to move out of their house. Their house isn't even up for sale.
Right. She loves
they have no intention of moving. She's like, can you help me? She's out there. I'm just beginning, just absolutely starting. And I think we create this is Mount Everest in our head, and we truly don't need to. I love this idea of lowering the stakes. I feel like this entrepreneur that you walk through a case study. I love case studies. I just love case studies. You learn so much from them. And you've got this inventor, this woman who takes some pretty much pantyhose and does something different with pantyhose. than other people have done with it. Can we start diving into this case study? And maybe we'll bring up some other themes about failure that really work here.
Absolutely. This is the story of Sarah Blakely, who really is one of my all-time favorite entrepreneurs. And what I love about her is just she was just so unafraid to fail. And here she was going to a party one night, and she had these new cream colored jeans that she wanted to be wearing with sandals, but they were very thin, and she didn't want to be wearing them with her panties because you could see them through the pants. And so she took a pair of pantyhose and she cut off the feet of them to go to this party. And then she realized, hey, this is an idea. A lot of people probably have this. They want to be able to wear certain clothes with sandals or with open-toed shoes, and pantyhose would be good under them, but the feet get in the way. So she just literally took this and she tried to build this product, and she finally gets a prototype built after going from door to door and having doors slammed in her face. And she's able to get herself in with the head buyer of Neiman Marcus. And
never heard of
him. And and she's in there, and she literally walks in. She just cold called this woman. And after the woman getting called so many times, she finally agrees, like, look, okay, I can give you 10 minutes. So she flies from, across the country to this woman. She's sitting in this boardroom. She walks in with her one prototype in a Ziploc bag, and tries to talk to this woman about how this is going to revolutionize ladies' underwear. And this woman is completely unimpressed. And she finally turns to her and says, sir, can you come with me into the bathroom? And the woman's like, excuse me? And she's like, just come with me into the bathroom, please. I need to show you how this actually works. And so, with nothing else to lose, realizing she's about to get another door slammed in her face, she takes her into the bathroom and she says, like, look at my butt. Now I'm going to go put on these pantyhose. And then she says, look at it again, see how different it looks. And she's like, okay, I get it now. I'm going to try it. I'm going to go put it in a few stores and we'll see how it does. And the story just gets more and more interesting because, to most people would say, wow, this is a success. I just landed a buyer at a huge store. But Sarah says, wait, no, this is actually really dangerous because I'm going to send all these products. Nobody knows the product exists. None of their salespeople are trained on how to sell it. They're going to put it up on the shelf. Nobody's going to buy it. And then they're going to send it all back to me. And they're going to say, sorry, we tried it. It was a dud. And so she literally starts calling everybody she knows in every single town where they're doing it, begging them. It's like, hi, remember me from the 3rd grade? Can you go into the store, buy a pair of these pantyhose, and I will send you the money. I will pay for them. She's just trying to create buzz. And then she runs around to the different stores and she starts educating the salespeople on how to sell this. She sends them to Oprah, and Oprah puts them on and declares it like one of her big successes of the year. But she's just fearless. And I kept wondering, like, why is she so fearless in this approach? And this is the part that I really love of the story. That you ask her, where did she get this mindset from? And she says, it's simple. When I was a girl, my dad used to sit us around the table, and dinner table, and say, how did you fail this week? Not in terms of like beating you up for failure, but in terms of saying, tell me about the places where you tried something that was above your head and you failed. In her family, they celebrated that. In most families, we're humiliated by it and we try to ignore it.
Yeah.
And so she was raised with this idea that the only time you fail is when you don't try. And that's definitely not what I got out of school. That's definitely not what I got out of my upbringing. And I realize that's probably why I'm so afraid of trying and failing. And same with most of our listeners.
Man, there's so many lessons. And I want to go all the way back to the beginning of the story. So she walks in and doesn't look like the prototypical person that Neiman Marcus is going to buy from, right? She's got this backpack on. The product's in a Ziploc bag. I mean, this is not a high-end Neiman Marcus thing that she's selling.
You got to be kidding me.
What I love, and you focus on this, and I feel like this is where a lot of our deeders get it wrong, Crystal. In fact, during my career, not just our deeders, but even when I worked with American Express, when I was a financial planner, when I would counsel people on asking for a raise, the ability to foresee failure coming, I think, Dave, is a huge part of this story, because you tell the story that she looks into this buyer's eyes. I think her name was what, Diana? She looks into Diana's eyes and she's like, Diana ain't buying this. There is no way she's going to buy this. This goes back to one of my favorite books, which is The Art of War, ancient Chinese philosophy. This idea of the best battle's the one that's never fought. And the only way you can avoid a battle is by knowing when you see a battle coming. And Sarah, Dave, sees this battle coming. She's like, there's a battle coming. I'm not winning this thing. And that's when she asked her to go to the bathroom. Like this idea to foresee failure, I think, Dave, is a huge piece that we often miss.
Absolutely. And my favorite personal story from the book is actually the one where I'm standing outside Interpol headquarters.
As
Yes.
you do. Again, when I'm not in Ecuador, I'm standing outside of Interpol headquarters. Or I'm in Texarkana in a car with us.
Exactly. Standing outside Interpol headquarters, discussing my plan with how to blow up the building. And this was a story, and I kind of lead into it with, more the suspense and make me sound like a real terrorist. But the person I was standing outside with was my boss at the time, who later became Interpol Secretary General. And I detected a certain, what I considered to be security leak in the building. At the time, we had no control to do anything about the security. We were just there doing this project during the summer, and I was his assistant. And I saw something that really bothered me about the security. So I said to him, I said, Ron, if you wanted to blow up Interpol, could you do it? And he's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, well, how? And he goes through this whole thing. It's like, here's what I would do. And he listens to my story. He's like, no, that can't be true, right? You can't actually get in that way, can you? And I'm like, look, go investigate it yourself. And I'm not going to say what it is because I'm pretty sure the leak has been fixed, but I'm not 100% sure of it. But that was my story to show what we call pre-mortems. People are a lot more familiar with postmortems, with looking at something that went wrong. The airplane crashes and then looking at the black box and trying to figure out the recordings, trying to figure out what went wrong. But pre-mortems are saying you don't have to wait for the airplane to go down to run a disaster scenario and walk it back and see what could have been fixed the first time. So pre-mortems can save you a lot of trouble. They actually stop you from having to make the mistakes the first time if you can do those scenarios and run through them. And NASA, we look at NASA, they do this all the time. They run everything they do in space. They probably do like 100 times on the ground. And they look through this disaster scenario and this disaster scenario and this disaster scenario each time. How would we want to handle it to make sure that this doesn't cause mission abortion?
I absolutely love it because, we think about Crystal going after a property and we think about, okay, they might block us here. They might block us there. Somebody might do this. Somebody might do this. Like if I walk through all of those things or, we get the offer in writing, but then we have the inspection. And then, it's funny when we get to the inspection, that's when the real negotiating starts, right? At that point, now we're truly going to set what the bar is. And I think walking through those well, if I ask for this might happen. I love this idea of setting up all of these things in our head ahead of time. But there's another piece of this, which is that Sarah, did you want to comment there before I go on?
Oh, yeah. I was saying that's why even when you're looking at the numbers, that's why we say, do the best case scenario, average scenario, and what if there's a downturn. So,
Yes.
Keep these three scenarios in mind so that even if things go wrong, if there's a downturn, if the numbers still say yes, you're covered.
And you're bringing up this idea of asking for things at the closing. I think this is a really big key. We have a whole section on learning to love rejection, that oftentimes the biggest failure is rejection. I'm so afraid of being rejected that I won't even ask for what I want. And we follow this guy, Jia Zhang, who's just so afraid of being rejected that he couldn't ask for anything. And he realized that to get myself out of this, I'm going to go and start intentionally getting myself rejected every day for 100 days. And he put himself in these bizarre scenarios. Like he's in I think a Five Guys burger joint, and they said free refills on soda. So he goes up to the counter and says, I don't want another soda. I want another burger. Can I have a refill on my burger? So they will say, no, sorry, we don't do that. Intentionally going for rejections. But it only lasted 3 days of the 100 until he went up and asked for something completely absurd. He goes into this donut shop, Krispy Kreme, and he says, can you make me donuts in the configuration of the Olympic rings? And the woman's like, when do you need those? He's like, 15 minutes. And she's like, okay, let me see what I can do. Took him like 3 rejections, and suddenly people started saying yes. And so when you talk about these negotiations, I'm sure so many real estate investors get much worse deals than they would because they're so afraid of hearing, no, I'm not comfortable giving you that. It's like, look, you've already agreed on the price. You've agreed on the terms. You're sitting down here. You can ask for this. You can ask for this. You can ask for this. Worst comes to worst, they just say, no, sorry, we're just sticking with these terms. But we're so afraid of the no's that we don't even ask. You will get much, much better terms if you feel comfortable asking. And like the woman you brought up, who just goes, knocks on doors. People aren't even planning on moving. And she knocks on their doors and she just asks them. The ability to face rejection is a failure that will open up so much possibility for people, especially in the real estate space.
Yeah, and in a lot of other spaces too, because even when I'm making offers or, asking for terms, even for loans and stuff, it's like, listen, I want to get to 100 no's as fast as possible because there's going to be a yes somewhere in there. Someone's going to say yes. So it's like the faster I get through all of these no's, that's going to bring me closer to my yes.
Well, and also, Krista, just this idea that resistance is your friend, right? I think, Dave, what
Yeah.
you're saying is getting comfortable with the resistance that you may get. I mean, a lot of this, Dave, I think is between your own ears.
So much of it is between your own ears. I was interviewing people for a summit. You were on the summit a couple of years ago, and one of the other interviewees was telling me she was in HR, and that over the years, she said like 80% of the men, she gave jobs to negotiated and tried to ask for more money, and that only a handful of women did. And she felt this was one of the biggest differences in pay, because most of the time that people asked for more, they didn't get everything they were asking for, but they got more. And I said, did anybody ever talk themselves out of a job? Did you ever rescind an offer or pull back because somebody asked for more money? They tried negotiating. She said, no, never. Which means like there were absolutely zero downside to asking. And there was huge upside. There were people who, she gave me an example of a guy, first job out of college. I think he got like $40,000 more per year than they'd offered him just by asking for more. And yet so many people, and especially the women she was dealing with, didn't do it. And it's like, if we don't ask, I point out, like, we might have to settle for less money. We might have to settle for somebody else getting a promotion over us. We might have to settle for less love in our lives because we're afraid to ask somebody out who we'd really like to connect with.
I want to end on this note because this may be, I think, the message that our Dieters truly need to hear, which is you listen to a podcast because of the fact that you are getting educated, which is smart, and you're getting ready. And you read a book, Dave, like your awesome book, Hurry Up and Fail, because I need to get ready. I need to get ready. I need to get ready. And you know, and I know that at some point we just need to get out there. And you've got this whole chapter, start before you're ready. Can you talk to that for a moment? Because I think get your ass out there and do it.
Absolutely. And start before you're ready. We looked at this thing called NaNoWriMo. In fact, I've written one of my books, the first draft in one of them in NaNoWriMo, which is this whole challenge that hundreds of thousands of people around the world do every year to write a book in 30 days. And this started with just this guy who felt like, you know what? He wanted to write a book. He'd never done so before. Let's take this totally audacious goal of do it in 30 days, but let's also bring in a bunch of friends, make it something social, have accountability. He's got social proof because, some people are finishing, some are not. It creates a really amazing framework for doing something by making it easy to get out there and start. And this is, I think, the biggest lesson for the Dieters. Now, I'm in this group called the Harbor Club, which is all about business acquisition. And you acquire businesses literally for $1. Is you learn all these methods for acquiring businesses for basically nothing. And so much of it comes, I kept hearing over and over and over again. There's like 2,500 of us have gone through this training, and we share stories and we partner together on business deals. And I kept hearing, you need to break what they call your deal virginity. You need to get out there and get your first one. And you need to get through it.
That.
And so much of it is like, I'd say to someone, like, this idea of waiting forever to buy my first property, to get into it. You know what? You are going to learn so much from your first real estate deal, and a lot is going to go wrong. It's just going to happen every single time. But if you actually want to be building yourself in this area, and as we know, more people have become millionaires through real estate than anything else, you need to get there and take that first step. So whatever it takes for you to be doing that, I think one of the best ways is finding mentorship, maybe partnering with somebody saying, hey, look, I know you've done this a bunch of times. I'd love you to walk me through this. I'll give you 50% of what I make on my first property. Just please be there and help me learn how to do this, because I know that me getting through my first deal done is going to it's going to take all that fear. It's going to make it go away. It's going to give me that confidence. It's going to teach me all of these lessons. I'm not even so worried about making so much money on the first one. That's what they told me with my first business deal. It's like, what if you break even? What if you don't make a bunch? What if it goes wrong? Okay, you've learned all these lessons, you've built your confidence, and then you can go out there. So the earlier you get out there and start doing and start making deals and start acquiring real estate and getting in the game, the better off you're going to be.
What I think most of us need is that kick in the ass. And Dave's kick in the ass book is called Hurry Up and Fail on this topic, how success rises from the ashes of failure. I know not only because I know you, I know not only do you have the book, but you have some tools around the book. You've got a website where we could go and begin to dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to davemason.coach and get a free copy of the book right now, and we'll give you all these additional tools that go with it, little things to help you with the know-how. It's also free right now on Amazon, I believe. I'll try to keep it. They don't guarantee they keep things free, but I'll try to keep it free as long as possible. This is not where I make my income from selling books, so I really just want everyone to have it and get out there and hurry up and fail.
And that always is the question, is if I can get it for free, then Dave, how do you make your money?
Well, like I said, when you can acquire businesses for $1, it's not that tough doing it. It's so much of what I've tried to learn over time is how to use leverage, how to build businesses, the core fundamentals of understanding money, understanding how we get people to buy, how we get people to move, how to get people motivated to do things. For me, I always like to say my philosophy is learn, grow, teach. That's our family mission statement. And I don't really write books for people. Like, I like it when people read them. I write books that I need. When I go to learn, grow, teach, that's really the secret of my books.
Yeah.
I'm only laughing, Dieters. People are hearing me laughing because I've known Dave for a little while, and he is 100% true. You never do these topics for me. You're always doing it for you, Dave. That is 100% true.
Hurry Up and Fail was me facing my own fear of failure and really doing a deep dive. If you look at our book, The Cash Machine, the last time you interviewed me, I did The Cash Machine. I was struggling financially then because I'd grown up and never gotten a real financial education. Like, we don't teach this stuff in school. And I said, okay, I need a financial education. I can get, so much and I'll be okay in my life. But if I want to teach people about money, if I try to write a novel about that, I need to learn it so much better than if I'm just learning it for myself. So the best way I know to get myself an education was to write a novel on the subject. And that's what I did. Hurry Up and Fail is my first nonfiction. All the rest of them have been novels. But I love writing books around topics that I need to know about because nothing is going to force me to learn the subject better.
We will link on our show notes at stackingdeeds.net all the links that we talked about today.
Yes.
Dave, as you can see, we got you back to the airport, my friend. Now get the hell out of our car.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the lift.
Nice meeting you.
Big thanks to Dave Mason.
Yeah, loved it. I like how he said there's no downside to asking. Just ask. Like, we've been telling you guys this for a long time. Just ask. The answer to every question you don't ask is no. And another thing is let them tell you no. Don't just say, oh, they're never going to go for this. And this is with anything. Just let them tell you no. Don't tell yourself no before you even ask.
And if you want more real estate specific example of that, go back and listen to Vicki Barron on our show in September of last year, because that's a fantastic episode.
So we don't have a phone ringing this time, but we do have a question. Are we ready?
Yes.
All righty, let's do it. All right. Well, this question comes to us from Susie. Thank you, Susie. Susie says, I'm wondering what options may be available for novice investors besides putting down 20%. This would be investment properties and will not be a primary residence. I know about borrowing from your 401k, borrowing from other investors, and etc. However, I am wondering if there are grants or forgivable loans for such endeavors. I seem to just keep running into roadblocks with needing 20% down. Again, I don't want to borrow against my house or my retirement plans. Thank you.
This is interesting, Susie. There's so many ways to handle this. Crystal, maybe we should start with you because, when Susie's talking about grants or forgivable loans, that's your wheelhouse.
Yes, definitely. So there are so many programs. You just need to get on your Google machine, as we old people like to call it.
The Googler.
Right. But FHA now has a program where for investment properties, they will lend up to 96.5% of the appraised value. So you could put down as little as 3.5%. There are conditions and things like that, but it's worth looking into. So definitely, find a realtor and or mortgage broker that actually does these loans, because we talked a couple weeks ago about the mortgage brokers and the realtors knowing, like, even VA loans, those are 0% down loans. And if you're working with a realtor or a mortgage broker who does not work with those types of loans, your process is going to take longer and you're going to miss out on some rules that you don't needs. So definitely find someone that specializes in these. And you'd be surprised at how many programs that are out there. So ask around, let people know you're in real estate. Because even when I bought my first place, I had forgivable loan for even fixing the place up. And this was clearly an investment property. So you have to do your due diligence with getting on your Google machine and finding out what's available in your area. And there are a lot of programs.
Yeah, I would also call up your local city hall and your local county government and ask them. The name of the official that handles this is going to be different in every location, but who handles these types of programs? Tell them what you're looking to do, see if there are any programs. Now, this is going to depend, Susie, if you are going to use this specifically as a second property or an investment property, or if you're going to do a house hack, which is probably the safest and the easiest way to get started, where you're owner occupied and you're going to either have a second door on that property or you're going to fix and flip like friends of mine do, where you're going to live there for 2 years, fix it up, and then flip it over. If you're owner occupied, Crystal, I think there's some programs available and those are changing all the time. Doug, in this morning brew, as we're talking about this, you saw a program yourself.
Yeah, Joe, actually, I just saw this reported, as you said, in a daily newsletter I get called Morning Brew. United Wholesale Mortgage is offering 0% down home loans, but the way they construct it is, well, I think it's a little unusual. Under the arrangement, home buyers start without any equity. So if the value of their home just decreases, they would instantly owe more than the house is worth. That's true, frankly, on a lot of mortgage situations. When you don't put much down on it, it's possible anyways. If for some reason a buyer has to sell quickly, they still have to pay back that second mortgage all at once, or you risk default or foreclosure. And in theory, you could get stuck with a higher mortgage rate because even the Federal Reserve starts to cut interest rates and home loan or mortgage interest rates come down, you're locked in until you pay off that smaller loan, essentially the loan you took out for the down payment. The mortgage companies and the industry is trying to figure out some solutions to break the slowness in the market right now.
And if you're in an area where the property appreciates, you might not even have to put more money into it. You could refinance the primary loan at some point, but you're going to have to get up to a much bigger number to be able to do that and avoid PMI. But initially, if you want to get in, Susie, and you don't want to put the 20% down, there's an option. There are also some fintech companies come and go, but over the years, there have been some fintech companies that also will, in exchange for some of the equity, they will actually help you buy your house. So you own 80% of the house, they own 20% of your house, and you co-own that property. When you sell it, they're going to
get their 20, right?
Then cash in as well. Yeah.
That is a great idea. And then another third option is, it's still a good option, not the best option, is just keep saving up that 20%, because even if you happen to find a program, if you find a grant or if you end up going with one of these fintech companies, you have a cushion for emergencies. You have a cushion for, things that come up, because things do come up. You can get a tattoo if you don't have tattoos. I'm not a tattoo person. And, but that could be your first tattoo. Things will come up. So, things will go wrong. So you can set your clock to it. Something unexpected will happen. So just keep saving, keep waiting, hurry up and wait.
It'll be easier to get rid of the house than it will be to get rid of the tattoo, Crystal. I like that, though. I like that just keep saving, because here's the thing that I scratch my head on a little bit is right now it seems very popular to talk about how there's some unfairness towards younger people right now in their ability to buy a house. And they talk about, I wish I could get those houses that the Gen X folks got to buy for like $1,000 for this 5,000 square foot house. That was never the case. It was hard for everybody, even back then, to save up enough to buy a home. It was never easy to buy almost any home at any level, whether it was a starter home or your second or third home. And we all want that easiest entry into those big purchases, whether it's a car or, whatever the big dollar figure is. You still got to bite a bullet sooner or later and do some savings to get your way in.
Yes.
I did. And I bought back when
Me
everybody
too.
thinks it was the glory days when they were practically free. They were handing out houses everywhere. And it was really tight. We had to save like crazy and not make some purchases that we otherwise would have because we wanted that house.
There are two things that I think she ends her question with. I don't want to borrow against my house or my retirement plan. Guys, I agree
Yes.
with
Yes.
don't go
No.
near your retirement plan. I don't know. For an investment property, though, I may borrow against my house. I may do that. I may use my primary residence. Now, realize what you're doing here. You are putting your primary residence on the line. And if you have not done the math like we've warned you about a bajillion times just on this episode alone,
Bajillion and one now.
yeah, you're now going to flush your primary residence down the toilet as well. But if you followed along, you've made sure that you have recourse when storms hit. We've seen storms across the United States, and you know what your plan is there. You know, if you have vacancies for 2.5, 3 months for longer than expected, you have that contingency taken care of. I think leverage is bad when you're betting. I think leverage is good when you're like, hey, I got this money sitting around in my primary residence, and heck, I'm going to go ahead and use that. So I'm not against, given the right conditions, using your primary house as a leverage tool.
Yeah.
Isn't it a little bit from an investment standpoint, Joe? It's a little bit like buying options off of equity that you have in, well, it's not really equity, but what you have in your other investment account, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it for people that are new to this world, but they know the stock market. You know, options are considered very risky, but doing something called writing a covered call is a way to use options incredibly conservatively and have this stock that's just sitting there make money when otherwise it wouldn't make money. Same, yeah, 100%, Doug. If you've got a question for us, we'd love to hear your voice. And how do people ring us with their lovely voice? Maybe they can sing Dave Mason tunes for us as well.
Right. Can anyone sing better than Neighbor Doug?
No.
Please, 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 please take us out of this misery that we didn't know we were walking into. But thanks again, Susie, for your question. But please head to stackingdeeds.net/voicemail because we want to hear your voice and not Neighbor Doug's unpleasant.
I would say we give Doug help, but this guy can light it up at karaoke time, Crystal.
Okay. Let's do it.
It's the whole performance, really. It's not
next
just the
meetup.
quality of the voice. I realize I don't have Adele's voice, but the whole performance, I'm all in.
I think he's got the voice too. Give him a little James Brown. That guy's just...
no, please stop it. Yeah, but I do love your t-shirt today, Neighbor Doug. He has on a WKRP t-shirt.
Yes. If you want to say hi to us, Crystal, how do people say hi?
Yeah, well, you can find me at Condo Crystal, and you can find Joe over at
Average Joe Money or Stacking Benjamins podcast on Instagram. Also join our Facebook group, which is the Stacking Benjamins Basement, our sister show, The Basement, and let's talk real estate there. Let's get real estate discussions going in there for all those stock market money nerds. Let's make them learn that real estate's where it's at. Let's drive some of those discussions in the basement. All right. Coming up next week, we are going to dive into more basics. Last week, we had Greg McBride talking about the basics of home lending. You know, we were talking about with Neighbor Doug earlier about home equity loans and lines of credit. Also, we were talking about answering Susie's question about that might be a way to go. We are going to talk with the CEO of a company called Prosper that does exactly that. How do home equity lines of credit, how do home equity loans work? We're going back to Financing 101, Crystal.
101.
All right. Doug, I think you got it from here, man. What should we have learned on today's show?
So what should we do based on what we learned today? First, take some advice from Dave Mason and get busy failing. Often that next no you think is coming is right between your ears. Second, while you might not be in the market to create a gigantic 3D printed neighborhood, remember that technology is your friend. From building materials to AI tools to help you get pricing right, as they say, times are a-changing, and you need to keep up to stay afloat and beat the competition. But the big lesson? If you build it, they really will come. You just might need to look for alternative revenue streams, like charging strangers to ride shotgun in your car. Bet no one's thought of that before. Thanks to Dave Mason for joining us today. You can find out more about his work at davemasonauthor.com. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingdeeds.net.